Ronan has been studying very hard. He hails from Scotland. He is, I understand, now living in London, studying very hard, playing a lot of games, and was the ABSP's most improved player for 2024. Had a rating increase of 30 points from 137 to 167. And he's only about 10 points, in fact, exactly 10 points below David in the ABSP ratings at the moment. So this should be a cracking game between two excellent players, and David is starting. So we will get straight into the action. I think I said 2024. I meant 2025 for Ronan for most improved player, forgetting which year we're in. So David has quite a vowel-y rack to start with. 5 vowels, of 3 arrays, and that horrible UV combination. And Ronan also looks to have a very challenging vowel-y rack with 3 eyes, so this could see some changes early on here. Would not be surprised at all to see both players change. David will probably just be thinking, does he have a 4 or 5 left to play that's worth playing to turn over some of those tiles? But AN would seem to be his best leave here, so he might well change the other 5, and it looks like he is doing just that. That seems to be the natural move to me there, to exchange those 5, keep the AN, and give yourself a good chance of a good rack next time round. So over to Ronan, and he's quickly playing his best scoring play of QI. Not much to think about there. He could have thought about changing, because he is keeping 2 eyes back from that. But if you're going to make any move on the board, QI is the obvious one to play on that particular move. Gets 22 points on the board. And so we bow back to David and we wait to see what his 5 new tiles are. QI doesn't really give anything away about Ronan's rack. He would have played that with most racks if he had the Q. Unless he had a really big Q score to play. So David still looking a little bit unbalanced with this rack. 2 Gs, 2 Is. Doesn't look very appealing. Not going to be any really big scoring plays here. He doesn't have any bonuses. He's going to want to undouble the Gs and undouble the Is as well. He's lined up a going and then just going, both of which would play on this board. Both seem reasonable options. If you're just looking to turn over, you could also just play GIO under QI, keeping AGIN, which is a very nice leave, a very bonus friendly leave. So could be an element of style here. Do you want to take the points? GO looks pretty strong to me here, and it keeps the A back to hook on their next move with your other tiles. So you could potentially hit a bonus down that double column to the left. Now lined up NIO, NGAIO. So there are a few very similar plays here, all scoring around 20, 23 points. But in terms of giving yourself the best chance of hitting a bonus next move, I think something like GO or AGO. And it looks like he's playing a going, so he's going for turnover here. 25 points, not is his highest scoring play available, but it does potentially give away a lot on the triple. So if Ronan's got a high scoring consonant, which he doesn't, he could easily get quite a big score there. So I'm quite surprised that David's chosen to put the A in front there, with the potential to give away quite a lot. But it is his highest scoring play. Ronan, though, cannot hit that spot very sweetly. He's only got 1 point tiles on his rack, and 5 of those are vowels. So he has taken that spot off, with Ilya turning over 4 of his tiles, getting rid of the 2 eyes, which seems like a good option. Could have played Iota in the same place. 18 points is the best he could do there, and that was one of his better options. So, yeah, good play by Ronan to recognise that, and he's drawn more ease. So back to David. Very vowely start to this game for both players. So let's see how that shapes the way that the game develops, because if a lot of vowels get played early on, we could have a very big shortage of them at the end. So David has drawn an S, he's drawn the X. He's going to have some high scoring tiles on his rack here. But the 2 L's. So he should have a high scoring play to make here. A couple of places to dump the X. You could play Lex on top of Ilya, getting rid of one of the L's. You could just play Oxy off the O of a going. That would keep both of the L's, but it wouldn't be terrible with the S. Would still give him options for the next play. But the biggest score, actually, he can play parallel underneath, can't he? So he can play 6 if he spots that, making AAS. That would score 57 points, and actually that would be by far his best play here. So I would expect him to spot 6. And Lex above Ilya is his next highest scoring play for 39, but I wouldn't expect him to take too long on this move. I think 6 will go down fairly quickly. And it looks like he's got that lined up on his rack now, so getting ready to play that for 57 points, which will give him a nice early lead. He'll also be keeping the Y back, which would hook on the end of Ox for the next move, potentially. Yep, so that's his best choice there. Takes him up to 82 points. Ronan's really got an unpleasant rack. 4 E's, 2 T's, and an O. He's not going to be able to score much here. He's playing quite quickly, playing toe. Does keep 3 E's. It scores 24 points, and probably better than changing given the score he can get for that play. He's playing very quickly so far, Ronan. Not taking a lot of time to think about that one. So David kept ELLY from his previous move, and we wait to see what he draws to go with that. Mentioned at the start that Ronan's quite a new player on the scene. They've only played each other once previously in ABSP tournaments, and David was the winner on that occasion, but not much to go on, really, in terms of a head-to-head on here. David, very experienced player. And he's drawn OK to his leave of ELLY. He's picked out DIT. So we'll be thinking about what are the best options here. What can he score? It's worth noting that Ronan's play of toe, as well as a D, does also take a Y. So David could be looking at playing something down there, and he's looking at playing at Dilly down there, which seems reasonable. In fact, it's a very nice leave of ET as well. Scores 35 points. Could also have played yield, keeping the L and the T. But Dilly looks like a really good, strong play there from David. And yeah, good score and a good leave. So Ronan kept those 3 E's. We'll be relieved he didn't draw any more, but he's still got vowel problems here. So he'll be looking to score as much as he can and balance his rack as quickly as possible to get into a position where he can think about playing a bonus. He's lined up Tobe here. That does play. It has an anagram as well, which is Tubae, Tubae. And you might be looking at playing it to make Jeet on the left-hand side of the board, and that indeed is what he's doing. He's playing Tobe in that position. Looks like a strong play. And it keeps the 2 E's. That's about as good as he was going to do from that rack. David, meanwhile, has picked the J and the Z and an F, so he's picked up some high-scoring, powerful tiles here. And I would expect to see a big score go down here. First thing that leaps out is Jeets through the A of Tobe, but there may well be other really strong plays here. David just having a good think about what to do with this rack. So he's lined up Jets, which suggests he might be about to play Jeet through the A, which is his highest scoring play available. And it would retain the Z, which will high score next play. Dave's already played off 1 S with the X for a big score, and now he's playing off another S with the J for another big score of 56. It's a very strong start to this game for David Webb. So back to Ronan. His rack has improved a little bit, but he's still got some duplicates. He would have been looking for a D for Renowned or something similar to that. So he's getting closer to a bonus, but he's not there yet. And he's trailing by nearly 100 now. So what are Ronan's best options here? If he wants to address the duplicates N and the E, he could play something like Wenge through the G of a going, making QIN. That would keep NOR. Again, he doesn't have any really good scoring plays here. Lown is another possibility, Lowne, but that's very open. And only scores 16 points, although it does have a nice leave. It looks like he is using that QIN hook, and he's playing wrong. I don't think there is anything wrong with that at all. It looks reasonably good. It keeps EEN, so he's again keeping 2 E's, but it does open up the board a little bit at the top, and he's behind, so we want to make sure that he's keeping lanes open, so if he can draw into a bonus, he can get one down. So we knew that David was going to be keeping the Z, and he will be looking to score heavily on this move. Wrong does take an A in front of it, so he'll probably look across there to see if he can play anything going across. Doesn't look like he has any really strong plays in that area, though. Most of his best scoring plays are through the L, the second L of Dilly at the bottom of the board. So he has, for example, Fusil, F-U-Z-I-L. He could also play very nice Zufoli for 26, which would keep AS. And in fact, it looks like he's lining that up. Forza, F-O-R-Z-A, could be played through the R of Wrong. That's another high-scoring option. He's probably eyeing up the leave of AS from that rack and thinking that is about as good as he's going to get. So he's definitely considering leave quite strongly here, although Zufoli is not one of his highest scoring players. It scores 26. He can score 37 with the other plays, but with an inferior leave. So it's about here, weighing up, is the extra 11 points for Fusil or for Forza worth the inferior leave? And he's decided to go for Zufoli, which is a very nice play and very nice spot. Not easy to spot plays like that on that board. So well done to David for finding that one. And Ronan yet again has 4 E's. So he's really going through the mill here. And it looks like that play has just been challenged. Extra 5 points. So that play brings David up to 204 to 107. So Ronan really needs to bonus as soon as he can to get back into this game. But he's not close to a bonus at this stage. Picking lots and lots of E's. So he could make a play using 3 of those E's down to the W of Wrong. If he knows it and spots it, he could play Teen, T-W-N-E. Leave him with E-O, and it would open up that top part of the board, which he's going to need. Okay, he's playing Een, E-N-E on Zufoli, which does at least get rid of 2 of those 4 E's, but it does still keep 3 vowels on his rack. Very difficult position to be in. He's just fighting to stay in this game at the moment and hopefully draw some scoring tiles. David, meanwhile, has a nicely balanced looking rack. Got some really good tiles on there. A, C, E, S, T all go really well together. A, E, M, S, T will go really well together. So he might think about playing off just a couple of tiles here to give himself a good chance of a bonus. But if he knows the Wrong to Arong hook, which I'm sure he does, he might consider playing his S again for a non-bonus play. He could play something like Wames and Arong for 38. That would be one of his highest scoring plays, if not the highest scoring play. Waste would be another option in that position. You could just play more, M-A-W, and that would keep the S back. So a few things to think about here. Meanwhile, we see that Ronan has drawn a blank, which he'll be very relieved to see, although he still has 3 E's on his rack. So David's got a good lead here. He won't want to create too many openings for Ronan. He'll want to maximize his score and give himself a good leave here. Maintain that lead. He has lined up Wames now on his rack. So Wames would score 38, and it would be his highest scoring play. It doesn't give too much away. It takes off the double-double. Does place an S out there, and an S is obviously a useful tile for bonuses. But this looks like a very solid play here. Yeah, it's a good play by David. 38 points. And that stretches his lead to over 100. So now we see Ronan. He's got quite a lot of time. He's played very quickly so far. So he needs to have a really good think here about, does he have a bonus? And it's very tricky. He's probably fed up of seeing all these E's at this point. And I will reveal, without saying what it is yet, there is one playable bonus on this board with this rack, and I'll see if chat can come up with that one. So kudos to those of you in the chat who have spotted I stone through the S that has just been played, and that is a really difficult spot, which even if you know the word, to find it with that rack, blank bonuses are always very difficult. You've got so many things to think about. Making the blank a Y and playing for a face value low score for a bonus is not very intuitive, so it would not be at all surprising if he did not find this play here. Most players would struggle to find plays of this nature in this situation, especially on the stream. And frankly, even if he doesn't play it, it's not going to be a huge error because he can play off a couple of those E's, still keep a very strong leave. He's not going to be sacrificing a lot here if he doesn't find I stone. And yes, it's been pointed out, missing a bonus is at most a 10-point mistake. Yeah, that's reasonable. So if he does find I stone and plays it, I'll be very impressed. But frankly, if he doesn't, I'm sure he will still play a good play here. So quite rightly, Ronan is using his time on this move. He played very quickly for the first few moves. This is a situation now where he really needs to think. So good time management, playing through those tricky racks early on. And he's playing Inu, which looks perfectly reasonable. If you're not going to play I stone, that doesn't look like a bad option. And it's keeping some useful floaters up at the top of the board. And it keeps him in the game. So back to David. 2 A's on his rack, a C, a P and a V, so slightly clunky. And he'll be looking to find a way to balance his rack here. He's lined up Captive as a possible, which looks like it will score really well onto the second E of Inu. Packer is another option, which he's got lined up now. So yeah, Captive looks really strong. It scores 36 points. There is a 40-point play here. which retains the V, but captive is going to be played here. And that looks very strong, and it turns over a lot of tiles. It takes off some bonus lanes, scores really well, and gives himself a chance of drawing into something good. The 40-point player mentioned was Placita, the anagram of capital, through the L of Dilly. Very difficult spot, but I think captive is better in any case. So back to Ronan. And he has 2 O's and 2 T's to go with his blank. He's finally down to 1 E, and he does have some options here. And I'm sure he'll be thinking very carefully about what he can play to try and get back into this game. He really needs to bonus as soon as possible if he's going to get back into this. So this rack of CEOOTT blank makes only one 7-letter word which does not play on this board. That is cocotte, making the blank another C. It does have some options here. All of them involve using the R of arong. So he just needs to run through the possibilities for the blank here and work out what he can have. There are 3 possible choices that he can make the blank. So if you want to have a think about those, if he makes the blank an A, there is a possible bonus through the R there. If he makes it an R, there is another one, and if he makes it an N, there is another one. So there are 3 possible different words he can make here using the R of arong, using A, N, or R. And he's having a good think about that now. Meanwhile, while Ronan's thinking, David has drawn into a good rack here, and Ronan does bonus. David could well bonus back. Okay, so Ronan has played 2 underneath captive, so he hasn't managed to find any of those bonuses with the R. He could have had Corretto or Cornetto. They were 2 options, or co-rotate, which we saw on stream towards the end of yesterday as well. But if you're not going to play a bonus, then 2 looks reasonable to balance the rack. Always difficult with a blank. Always difficult under the pressure of being on the stream. So back to David, who just needs to keep an eye on his time, but he's doing okay. He's got just under 9 minutes left. He's lined up Renegues on his rack here. Also has Raunges, but which does not play. In fact, Renegues is the only playable bonus on this rack. Plays through the E of Inu or the E of Wames, which is where he's playing it for the highest score. And this is his best play here. So this puts him in a really, really strong position in the game now. And the play is just being held. Ronan having a think about that one, whether to challenge. And frankly, if he's not sure, then he probably should challenge, because this is going to be a game-sealing play for David. And if there's any chance that it's not valid, then he should challenge it if he has any doubt. And it looks like he is going to challenge that play, which is the right thing to do if you're not sure. So that'll be another 5 points. So back to Ronan. He's trailing by nearly 200 now, so he's going to be feeling it out there. But he's got chances to bonus here, and hopefully he'll find something on this move. He has a few options here now with CEE LRT blank. And I'm sure we'll be seeing him get his first bonus of the game down on this next play. So looking at some of Ronan's options here, his highest scoring play is 86, which is erectile on the top row. And he's playing re-elects through that E, which is one of the lowest scoring ones that he has available. But I think he's really going through it at this point. And he's probably just relieved to get a bonus down at this stage. So that will score 62. David, meanwhile, has drawn the second blank and is in a very strong position in this game now. So he'll be looking to maximise his scoring for the rest of this game. Try and boost his already very strong spread. Going into this game, David was on 11-7, but actually has one of the highest spreads in the tournament. He's got a spread of 1,149, so he will still think he's got good chances of getting involved in the top prize places here, and the more spread he can eke out, the better. So when you're in this position, as David is in, don't take your foot off the pedal. Keep on pushing for the spread, because it often separates prize places, and I'm sure he'll have that on his mind now. He'll want to do his due diligence and make sure that he doesn't give anything away, but his lead looks pretty much unassailable at this point in the game, especially with the second blank on his rack. So options for David here. It's a nice place to play the P above the Eye of Captive, or the B. You could play Panned or Banned in that spot. If he's thinking about going for another bonus, he might just play something like Fib through the Eye of Dilly, give himself a leave with better synergy of the tiles to give himself a chance of drawing into another bonus. But Panned and Banned look like the best options here. Manned is also an option, but BFP, not the best combination of tiles. So what's David thinking about playing here? He's lined up mad, which could suggest he's thinking of playing manned. It would seem that he's identified the highest scoring spot on the board. And he has, and panned is going down, which is definitely one of his best options there. So good play by David. And back to Ronan, who frankly has not been drawing well this game. He's had some really horrendous tile picks, and he must be really going through the mill. And yeah, just the one vowel now, 2 R's and a V. It looks pretty desperate, and have to feel for him. I think anyone who's been on the stream in this position knows what he's going through, and it's tough out there. So he just has to try and concentrate on playing his best play here. Of course, the blank is still unseen to Ronan, so he might think about going for that. The S's have all gone. So his highest scoring plays here involve playing underneath 2 and using his H. He could play horn, he could play hond. Both of those would leave him with 3 consonants. But with only 1 vowel to start with, his options are very limited. There is a very nice insertion play on the very bottom row of the board, dumping just the V and 1 of the R's to play venery around the E and E for 14 points. And it does actually have the advantage of keeping his vowel. But I think he'll just be looking to score here. And he's playing horn. 28 points, which is one of his best choices. So yeah, well found, Ronan. Back to David, who still has some clunky tiles to go with his blank, but he'll be happy to see the scoring tiles on his rack. He's got the K, F, B, M, so all potentially powerful scorers on this board. Although there aren't any super hotspots for them at this stage. There's a very nice 4-tile play that he could make here on top of Ilia, which will get rid of 3 of those heavy consonants and retain the blank. Okay, he's playing Mac. That is one of his top players in this position. 31 points. He could also have played Kemb, K-E-M-B there, which would have been a very neat play. But Mac is a pretty good play. And doesn't do anything to the board, doesn't give anything back to Ronan. So Ronan has 2 vowels. Slightly more balanced, but still some clunk on his rack as well with the V and the Y. Has a few scoring options here. Can score 30 plus on this rack. So he'll be looking at what he can make from this. So plays down from the S of re-elects. Play Savory. That'll be a nice 38, keeping the D and the H. There's a very neat play of Rhody, R-H-O-D-Y, parallel to Renegues going downwards. There's also quite a neat spot to play the Y. If he spots it, Pand takes a Y on the end. So he could play Liam and Pandy. That'll be a very neat little play slotted in at the top of the board there. And the Y also plays between the R of Arong and the A of Renegues, so he could play something like Moy in that position. So he's got some good scoring options on this play that only use 2 tiles. So a few options to think about here. David, meanwhile, looks like he's very close to a bonus and probably has some 7s that will play. In fact, he does. So depending on where Ronan plays here, we could be seeing David bonus again next move. Looks like Ronan has lined up Horde. That would play down from the S of Renegues, or down from the E of Renegues, in fact, for a slightly higher score. Hoary is another option, Hoary. So both players getting down into the last few minutes of their time now. Ronan played very quickly early on, but is now using his time to try and maximise his scoring to reduce the losing spread in this game. While Ronan was thinking about this, some other results coming in. Brian Poe has beaten Ellie Dangor by over 200. He's on now 15-4. Gary Oliver has got back on the winning trail after losing the previous game. He's also on 15-4. We haven't got Harshan's result in yet. He's playing Jack Moran. So if Harshan were to lose that game, we would have the top 3 all on 15-4 with 5 games to play. So I'm sure we're in for a very exciting finish to this tournament and lots of players who can still win it. Okay, so Ronan's made his choice and it looks like he's going for Horde, keeping the V and the Y. So back to David. Ronan's play has actually blocked all of David's possible bonuses. So he would have had something like Fibered or Filbered in the position that Ronan has just played. Doesn't have a playable bonus now. There may have been an element of defence in what Ronan played there. He might have been thinking that that was the most likely place for David to bonus if he did have the other blank. So he has at least avoided that happening. David will just be going through all his possible options here to see, does he have a bonus? Could he have something beginning with the S of re-elects? Quite close to things, but he doesn't actually have one. So his highest scoring play available here is 31. And that retains the F. And he looks like he might have found it. So Braid or Bride, B-R-E-I-D, on the right-hand side of Horde does score 31. And that is his highest scoring play available. There's also a nice Sheriff down from the S of re-elects if he made the blank an H. But he's found his highest scoring play here. Nicely done. And Ronan sitting with UVY. And Ronan will probably feel quite hard done by in this game. He's had some very tough draws. Did miss a couple of bonuses, very tricky ones. Ice Stone was very tough to find. And then again with the black next move, did miss some there. But he was already in a very tough spot by that stage. David scored very heavily early on with the X, with the J, with the Z. And Ronan really had a plague of vowels, particularly E's early in the game, which made it very difficult for him to get into this game. So overall, he'll feel he couldn't have done much more to win this game. David has played very solidly, very accurately as well. And that's a nice little play from Ronan at the end there of Irva on the R and the A to get rid of the V and score some points. That's actually his highest scoring play apart from My, which he could have just dumped the Y under the M of Wames. And David with F blank. And he will go out in the bottom right hand corner. Just waiting for confirmation of whether that blank is an A or an E, although it's fairly at this stage. Well, that will score 19 points to go out. And it's an A, just to get our admin right. It's F, A, and DA.